Tell. Oh, have a seat. Welcome to our third episode of Where the Stones Have a Story to Tell. These stories now are about prayer seats. This is probably the largest and well-known prayer seat. We're just south of the Megley Trail, not far from where we've done the first two episodes. After this, we'll be branching out quite a bit. This is by far the largest and well-defined prayer seat here in Gilbert Hills State Forest. Like many of the other structures and artifacts here, there's always some debate. Some say they were for vision quests, ceremonies, maybe individual reflection. Very often it's said that prayer seats are positioned facing up an hill and to the north. Well, half of that's true. Every prayer seat I've seen here, and there are dozens, are facing uphill, but not all of them face north. In fact, very few of them face north. This one in particular, while may face northerly, faces 330 degrees. Well, 360 to 330 is a difference. I think that much of what was done out here was super intentional, with great planning and purpose. So this site here was really the beginning of my journey in this forest in tracking the angles and relationship between sites. I sat here after reading a bunch about prayer seats, and they're all about facing north, and looking at the compass saying 330 and thinking 330 degrees, well, maybe that was just north 5,000 years ago to them. It's possible, but what happens if we followed the angle, an exit angle out of the center of this at 330? Where would it lead? Well, we're going to do that in another episode. That's why this prayer seat has a significance for me, because it really did start my journey and exploration on this forest. Prayer seats can come in different shapes and sizes, and we're going to go through a number of them. In fact, we're going to do two whole episodes on prayer seats. One, just different structural elements to them, different features. The second one's going to be variations. Most of them are U-shaped and rather distinct. In this case, you can see it's built into some base rock. You can question, and we'll take a look around the back, whether this center stone, possibly a Manitou stone is a reference to spirit stone or pointer stone, may have been laid here, or it may be part of the original structure and the prayer seat built around it. But very often they are either standalone structures built all of stone, or they are built over a base rock. Either way, they're very typically U-shaped. But in this second series, we're going to see the variations. I found one that are V-shaped, another one that seemed to have had structures or features added to it. And then, interestingly enough, there are two places in this forest where there are two prayer seats in very close proximity to each other, which is rather rare. But let's take a look at this prayer seat and its features. All right, let's take a GoPro close-up of the big prayer seat. See a very large boulder as a centerpiece in the back. Some stones have fallen down here. This is where the Forest Service not too long ago took this tree down, and a number of people have left stones and some crystals. On this left side, all very well structured walls all the way up over. There's embedded boulder down here and a large layer here. So as I stand looking at this, this is a little over my head. This is probably about 6.5, 7 feet. Coming all the way out. Look how big that is. Here's one of the base boulders in the back, and then that centerpiece boulder in the middle. The effort. Look at all those, just those little small stones sitting in there, holding them up. How far down that goes. There it is. The big prayer seat. Now let's take a look at the angles. As I mentioned, the exit here is about 330 up a hill there. Come back another episode and see where that angle leads. But I think very interestingly here, the back of this faces sunrise at the summer solstice. And if we head to the winter solstice. When we head to the summer solstice, it faces sunset at the summer solstice. May have been why this was such an important prayer seat. Its orientation to the sunrise at the winter solstice and the sunset at the summer solstice. What do you think, Telly? All right, let's go to the next. We're coming up on what is quite possibly the smallest prayer seat in the forest. If we started this episode with the largest, this would be the smallest. Walked by it 100 times before I realized it was a prayer seat. You can see the higher point here, 2 rocks, about a foot and a half. It reaches in a U shape to here on my left side, and then out to here on the right. So the reach across here is about 12 feet. It's hard to say whether this started out as a small prayer seat or it's just really, really old. But we do have a number of stones off the back. You can see some stones buried down in there. Hard to tell, small or old. Either way, we do know it points just slightly uphill, as they all do or tend to. And this one happens to go due north. So this is an example of where a prayer seat does face due north. All right, we are at a prayer seat that is featured on stonesites.net. I'll put the coordinates into the description. This has fairly strong defined structure here, but it is built off of, and its back is entirely this boulder here, which we will circle around. I think it has very interesting features here with the rock angled here and here somewhat symmetrically. Nice flat face on the right side and the right arm here. It faces 340 degrees, almost north. The back faces sunrise at the winter solstice. All right. I wanted to start with this prayer seat from the back. You can see how far down it goes. You're looking at the back of a prayer seat right there. So if I stand behind here, there's a bit of a depression right here. From there to there is about 6 feet in height, and stone all the way up. Whether that stone had been there all along to build up this hill or it fell off of the prayer seat over time, it's hard to tell. Coming up here, we can see the U shape here. It doesn't appear to have any orientation to equinox or solstice. Here comes Tilly. He's going to help fill us in. It has a boulder on its right shoulder, left the camera, the U shape, as I mentioned here. And from a compass standpoint, if this would be the exit, you're looking at something around 210 degrees southwest, directly up to an outcropping of rocks up here, which we may venture out to in another episode. So this is an example of a pretty well built up prayer seat with a boulder on one side. In this episode, we've seen 4 of the many prayer seats here at Gilbert Hills State Forest. We've seen them large and well constructed, small and broken down. They faced a variety of different directions. Some were freestanding. Some were built on, over, or next to boulders. But they all had one thing in common. They were alone in the forest, all by themselves. In the next episode, we're going to see several examples of seats built in close proximity to one another. We'll get the opportunity to evaluate them and see what they have in common. See you then.